Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's day 1082. This episode covers the following 9 weeks after the last episode, which was mostly about getting rid of those scale insects, that infestation that I had. So hopefully that's a thing of the past. I got this idea of using fruit peels, and of course I eat a lot of bananas, so why not use banana peels and cut them up into squares and wedges and triangles and whatnot to increase the surface area a little bit and to make it not as unsightly. So I cut off the tips where it's very hard and cut the peels into all these various shapes randomly, as you see, and I'm going to place them around. Hopefully they'll decompose very quickly, and when I water from the top, the nutrients will get in. So I have a layer of clay soil on top, and beneath that is probably 90% potting mix. So in previous episodes I mentioned that the potting mix volume decreased over time. So hopefully this strategy pays off, because after that scale insect infestation I haven't seen that much growth. So it's time for some new ideas. So it's day 1085. And I thought, well, those squares aren't decomposing very quickly at all. I mean, they've shriveled up, they've turned black a little bit, they've oxidized. But what if I were to blend some banana peels in a blender with some water? Would that increase the rate of decomposition by many fold and get the nutrients in there faster and also look better at the same time? So I decided to get some banana peels. I cut off the hard parts as I did previously with the squares and the wedges. And I'm adding some water in. I don't know how much to add. I've never done any of this before. So I pressed the liquefy button on my blender, and as you can see, the banana peel smoothie is oxidizing before our very eyes. It's happening really fast. This is on fast forward. But even so, you can see how fast the color is changing just by air bubbles mixing in there that have oxygen, and that's reacting with some of the compounds in there that have a greatly increased surface area now. So the first order of business is to pick off all this old organic detritus, including the leaves of, well, I guess I will leave them there, but I figured they'll get buried anyway, so that's not a big deal. Those leaves from that wild weed from where I dug up this clay soil can stay in there. They'll get buried, so I won't be looking at them all the time. So this banana peel smoothie is much harder to spread out than I thought it would be. It's not as difficult as peanut butter, but it's very viscous and foamy. It makes a huge mess, and it's not really dispersing and getting diluted by this distilled water that I'm pouring on. So it's day 1089. The banana peel smoothie formed a thick leathery layer. It's almost all black now, and there are areas where it's cracked. That's to be expected, because at some point this had to dry out with the sun beating on it for 3 days or whatever. So this is not quite what I expected, but I think it'll get the job done. As you can see, I'm looking at those weed leaves again. It's amazing how long leaves can stay green from various plants, whether they're succulents or just regular leafy greens. These weed leaves are probably going to be green for forever and ever. So it's day 1093, and as far as I can tell, there's been a burst of new foliage growth, although burst is quite the strong word to use with such a slow-growing succulent plant as this yucca species. But it seems like, although it's a thick leathery layer on top, the banana peel smoothie is actually pretty porous, and water doesn't just accumulate and only go down the edges. It seems like it just goes straight through in relatively short order. So as you can see, I think there's a decent amount of new foliage growth. So it's day 1100. I'm still paranoid about scale insects. I'm afraid I may have missed some spots. And as far as I've noticed, this cluster of new leaves in the middle have grown considerably by all the standards that I have in the past when it comes to how slow this thing grows. So 5 days later, I was thinking, well, what about a mango peel and mango seed smoothie instead, because the banana peel might be a little deficient in certain nutrients. So I was thinking a mango seed is a huge seed. It's probably the biggest seed that I regularly deal with in all the fruits that I regularly consume. And that should have a complete nutrition set for developing mango seedlings. So why not just blend that up? And whatever peels I have, although there is a downside, the peels have a bit of fruit flesh, mango flesh, to them, and I'm thinking that might attract bugs. In fact, I did read that banana peels can attract German cockroaches. That's one of the things they use as bait. So that's a horrible thought, but I haven't really noticed that many bugs. Hopefully that won't be a problem going forward. And I definitely have noticed growth every day or every few days. Anytime you can notice Joshua tree growth with your eyes, just as the days pass, is a very, very good sign. As you can see, this water is not mixing with this mango seed and peel slash fruit flesh smoothie at all. But I'm sure after it dries out and it becomes more porous, hopefully it will be. So it's day 1112, and I moved to a new apartment. So you may have already seen this in some of my other concurrent video updates, a plant growing series. And this is where I've put my Joshua tree for the time being. Seems to be doing really well. I put this pot in my car and drove over. It's in the same apartment complex, but in a different unit. So now my balcony is in a courtyard. It's got beautiful landscaping, plants, and it faces east. So I get maybe 4.5 hours of direct sun in the morning. It's not as harsh, but as you can see, that cookie on top is full of mold. So it's day 1125. I overwatered recently. The top is now very porous. It's a mango smoothie on top of a banana peel smoothie. Well, doesn't really have that much mango fruit flesh, but this is a very tedious process. I bought these, a box of 50 or so of these 15 ml hand pipettes, and I'm seeing if I could just transfer that water that probably contains a lot of nutrients and dead bugs to the caked on mango and banana peel smoothies on top. So that way I don't need to use new water, and any nutrients that got into the watering tray can be recycled up there. But as you can see, this is really tedious, and I would just recommend not watering that much in the first place. So it's day 1141, and I've decided I want to remove these dual smoothie layers caked on top. They've become really, really foul and vile. So look at all that mold on top, especially where the sun is facing. That's weird. I thought that there would be more mold on the other side. And I don't have a zoom in at this point, but there are all these translucent worms that also showed up in my raspberry cutting series pot. And you can see all these fungus gnats and things just writhing around. So basically they were living on the underside of that banana peel layer, which was on the bottom. So I decided, why not try just putting in straight mango seed smoothie instead. No fruit peels, which I think are nasty, and that won't have any of that attached banana and fruit flesh such as mango fruit, because that stuff really attracts bugs. At first I thought it might just be fruit flies, but I saw some pesky gnats or tiny flies, and who knows what laid those worms in there. Maybe the worms were from the wild clay soil that I brought in. I would say within about 30 seconds to a minute, all those translucent worms burrow deeper into the clay soil. They're heading for deeper ground for protection, otherwise they're going to dry out. But I was just amazed at how many various worms or maybe even maggots were down there. And they're definitely not anything that belongs to fruit flies or anything that I'm familiar with. So I'm picking through my bag of frozen seeds, and I'm going to show you and blend some of these seeds that are more pristine, ones that I would have used for starting a new mango growing series if I had to. And here goes another seed in there. I added a total of 4, but as you can see, this stuff doesn't oxidize before our eyes. It's very runny and watery. It sort of forms a pile of sediment at the bottom, but not too much. So there's various things in these seeds, and I'm sure there's lipids and other things like proteins that really make the composition very different from fruit peels and things like that, which contain wax and stuff that I'm sure insects like to eat more. I'm not sure if insects want to eat mango seed smoothies without anything else in them. So here's another seed that's in good shape. The flesh is again a white beige-ish color. This one looks a little bit more yellow. But you don't want to start a mango growing series with the seeds that have blackened areas on them, bruises. I don't know how they get like that, but I've opened a lot of mango seed coats, and I've seen a lot where they seem sort of ghoulish. They've got grayish regions inside. Maybe that's just some kind of rot. I can't imagine that there would be any kind of oxidation. So I think this is a good first test for seeds going into this. With 1 liter of water, it doesn't seem like the volumes increase due to foam or anything like that. So it's a pretty good consistency. It'll be a lot easier to pour. Pure mango seed smoothies are like powdered milk, and powdered milk is a little bit different in consistency, well actually quite different from real milk. So I'm adding slightly half of the 4 blended seeds here. I added slightly under half to the raspberry cuttings pot. So that's a smaller pot, and Josh is going to be around for much longer compared to that series. So I'm not saying the other series is going to end. I mean, it's just getting going right now, and it's going to fruit at some point, I feel. So it won't go on forever, but I'll be keeping Josh around for a very, very long time. Never say forever, but hopefully one day I can transplant Josh into the ground somewhere. So the first smoothie made from 4 good seeds didn't cut it. It doesn't cover everything. So here comes half of the other 8 seeds that I blended from that bag of frozen mango seeds. These are seeds that I wouldn't start a mango growing series with. And what I mean by that is just right out of the seed coat, they have grayish zones and discolorations, typically black zones that will spread if you try to incubate and grow them, even in the most sterile conditions using hydrogen peroxide in a closed container. So right now I'm spinning this pot around because the balcony itself is a little lower near the rail, and it's higher more towards the sliding door, and that's designed that way so water will flow off the balcony in case it rains or some flooding event happens, whether it's from the water heater or me pouring water on the floor of the balcony. So as you can see, this 8 seed smoothie consisting of bad mango seeds that I wouldn't use to plant new mango seedlings from. This has a darker consistency. It's more of a darker beige tan, but that's okay after mixing all this together. The color is actually a great match for the color of the pot, and it forms a great contrast with the shadow from the blades. So it looks like a sundial going in all these different directions. It dried out in just a few minutes, and it sort of looks like a salt flat. This whole picture sort of reminds me of the Smithsonian logo. So it's quite a sight. It's much more interesting than looking at just clay soil or some kind of potting mix. So I'm fairly confident that this will be a lot safer in terms of not attracting so many pests. This mango seed only puree or smoothie, as opposed to any kind of smoothie that has fruit peels, banana peels, mango peels in it. That fruit flesh probably ferments and it attracts a lot of bugs. So mostly airborne pests that come in here, flies, gnats, laying their eggs. There's also things that were in that clay soil that I brought in from the wild, so who knows what kind of eggs were latent in there and what kind of molds were in there. Well, you saw a lot of the mold, and I'm still surprised that it grew towards the sun instead of away from it in the shadows. So as you can see, there's a lot of new blades being pumped out. That's what I want to see, constant growth. I don't want to see the new blades ever stall out. So with succulents, always look to the center to see if new blades are coming out. If everything stalls and the new stuff is all dead or yellow or brown, then your plant is pretty much a goner or on its way to dying. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to my YouTube channel for further updates.